All right, let's look at the civic space, this government and the civic space. From, if it is not Sowore detention today, it is one thing or the other after Very Dark Man, and other civil society groups are also part of it. Like today, we heard the court has ordered that Sowore be detained, remanded at Kuje prison for not honoring court process and all of that. How do you reconcile all of this?
I call this a pseudo-democracy. We are not operating full democracy in Nigeria. This is pseudo-democracy. There's an element of, autocracy in what we are practicing in Nigeria. So when you have a government that is interested, in ensuring that the other two arms of government, are working in harmony with it, or maybe the government finds a way to integrate the other two arms of government into the executive, such that the line of divide between separation of powers is completely obliterated, then that is a challenge. So I see that as an individual, I see that as a challenge. Sowore should have seen that this is a trap. His arraignment is a trap. It happened to Nnamdi Kanu. When Nnamdi Kanu was brought in from Kenya through rendition, Nnamdi Kanu saw at some point that no matter, even if he hires the best lawyer, that their mind is made up to send him to prison. And that was why he decided that there's no point to get legal representation. He decided to represent himself, and he was interested because he now knew that there is no basis in law for him, to be convicted. So he kept asking the judge, show me the law which you are relying on to continue this trial. But the mind of the judge was made up, and we all know what happened. He's now in Sokoto prison. So Sowore should be very careful, because the activists we have in this country that are still courageous enough to challenge the status quo, to challenge this government, they are very few. Sowore is a leading voice in the movement. We have Very Dark Man, a leading voice in the movement. Then we have all these social media activists, these bloggers and all of that, who are, everybody is speaking out one way or the other, using different platforms. And for those that are able to put boots on the ground, I call it boots on the ground. Sowore is one of those who has constantly put boots on the ground. He's physically present in protest ground. He leads the Revolution Now movement. Every government will be frightened, with that kind of toga, Revolution Now. So that alone should have, put him on guard that this is a government that will want him out of circulation. But they are just trying to possibly introduce some fright, some fear in him that if you are not careful, we can do this to you. But once you take on, those of us who are activists, once you have worn the toga of activism, you describe yourself as an activist, and you live your life, as one. Because activism itself is a form of religion. It's a sworn oath to your conscience that there are certain lines you don't want to cross. Whether it is death, you are ready to die. As I sit here now, there's no amount of enticement you are going to entice me with. Is it cars? Is it money? Is it houses? You can't buy my conscience. Because Usman Dan Fodio in 1840 says that the conscience is an open wound. Only the truth can heal it. I am answerable to my conscience. I'm answerable to my mind, to my heart, to what I perceive as a human being, to what I think should be good life for the general good of the majority of the people. That is a religion to me. I don't go to church. I don't go anywhere. Because I also believe that even the churches themselves have been used as platforms of further eroding our collective mass resistance to oppression.
But let's look at Sowore. He has always been in court session. I think the last one he didn't attend was also the one probably resulting from the attack when he was tear gassed and he collapsed. But minus that, he has always been at court sessions. So is it enough for the judge to ask for his...
It is a price. Frantz Fanon says that the tree of liberty is watered by the blood of the innocent. You will be tear gassed. You will be beaten. All kinds of things will happen to you. That will not deter you. And to the government, they should not think that by sending Sowore to prison or by, coming up with all of these antics, that they are going to shut in, the voices of the mass of the people or pro-democracy activists from challenging them. History is replete with examples of dictators, of autocrats, who try to rein in your opposition. At the end of the day, the opposition survives. There's nowhere in the world, whether it's the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Russian Revolution, and all of that. The revolutionists will always survive. They will always prevail against autocracy, against dictators, against sit-tight leaders, against those who think that they are the state and they equate themselves with the state and the state is them. So this Sowore, Nigerians this morning should all mobilize, should organize against the emerging threat to the freedom of speech, to freedom of agitation and freedom of protest. Because it's an inalienable right, it's a fundamental right that cannot be tampered with by any government. Yeah, if Sowore did not attend court, yes, so what? Is that why he should be sent to prison? The judge can say it's contempt of court. Contempt in the face of court, that is contempt ad incuria in law. That is not sufficient, to have sent Sowore to court. Because even the judges themselves, they are members of society. They know what is happening in Nigeria. And so what does Sowore represent? Is Sowore representing himself, or is actually speaking for the mass of the people, for the interests of Nigerians? So the judges should also be very careful not to be seen to be used by the executive to muzzle the opposition, to muzzle activists. Because there's a thin line. What is happening in Nigeria today, there's a lot of negative perception, about the judiciary. I have a lot of respect for the judiciary. I have a brother who is a judge, so I have a lot of respect for them. Many of them are decent gentlemen who want to ensure that the society is governed by the rule of law. To them, I give kudos. But to the rest of them who think that they can become acolytes of the executive. They can become, at the beck and call of the executive to be used to muzzle Nigerians. The days of reckoning is awaiting them.
Let's go to the National Assembly. A lot of people have described this National Assembly, the 10th Assembly, as the worst in Nigeria's political history. More so when they've seen them accede to any request from the president, including the flawed Electoral Act 2026. What's your take on that?
Well, I don't know which word to use to describe this assembly now. The 10th Assembly, in my view, I was thinking that with every election cycle, with progression in our democratic practice, that will become stronger as a nation, that our institutions will become stronger. Institutions don't become strong on their own. It is individuals that make institutions to be strong. I recall the case of NAFDAC. Nobody knew about NAFDAC until Professor Dora Akuili became the DG of NAFDAC, and we saw how strong NAFDAC was. The closest we got to securing the independence of the National Assembly, particularly the Senate, was in the days of former Governor of Kwara State, Bukola Saraki, who was able to design a strategy to extricate the Senate from the vice grip of the executive. We witnessed what happened during Saraki's reign. Nigerians became very proud of the Senate. But this 10th Senate has become an anathema, a cog in the wheel of progress. Many Nigerians are disappointed in Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President. He was a former governor for 8 years in Akwa Ibom State. He came to the Senate controversially. We knew what happened. The resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State, Mike Igini. What happened? We have not forgotten. Somebody stood in for the Senate in the senatorial district of Akpabio. And curiously, that individual was removed and Akpabio stepped in. The elections in that senatorial district was reportedly rigged by a professor, I can't remember his name now, and Mike Igini stood his ground, provided evidence before the court. And that professor, as we speak, is in jail now. That is the first case of election compromise that was followed through by a determined resident electoral commissioner. Everybody knows the history of Mike Igini. We even thought he would become the INEC chairman. If Tinubu wanted INEC to be truly independent, why didn't he appoint Mike Igini as the INEC chairman? So that Nigerians, for once, we have confidence in INEC. But yet, every appointment that is made by this government is shrouded in controversy. So, as far as I am concerned, the Senate under Akpabio is symbolized by extreme disgrace. It has become a disgrace to Nigerians. I wonder what Akpabio is thinking of when he leaves the Senate, how history will record him. Is he thinking about that? Is he thinking of his family and children? Is he thinking of those, his children who bears his name? If an Akpabio son or daughter appears anywhere in Nigeria and introducing himself or herself as the son of the former Senate President Akpabio, how will Nigerians look at that child? In 2027, more is awaiting these senators in their respective senatorial district. Shock is awaiting them. They will be surprised that people, little known individuals, will defeat them in the elections that are coming up. And I want Nigerians, I call on Nigerians this morning, it is not enough to complain. We have our voters' card.
Unfortunately, we have oppositions that seem to be in bed with the ruling party. So do you think that the opposition is doing enough to check this government, or probably share the sentiment of those that say that the opposition is
We
dead
don't
in
have
Nigeria?
true opposition in Nigeria. We don't have genuine opposition in Nigeria. The reason I say so is that the political parties are bereft of ideologies. Have you ever seen Democrats in the United States crossing over to the Republican Party, or Republicans crossing in the Senate, the Congress, brazenly and openly? What a shame. These people are so shameless. As I said before you, if you elect me on the platform of the PROP or any political party, I must believe that that political party has a manifesto. I think the manifesto these political parties are writing is just a sham. It's just an academic exercise to deceive Nigerians. It is, any manifesto is supposed to be the ideological representation, the Bible or the Quran of that political party. But what do we have? They simply write their manifesto, and once they get elected, they throw the document away. They don't even move motions on the floor of the House in line with what their party manifesto. So if people can just defect from their party overnight, you get that on the platform of the Labour Party, PDP, NNPP, or any of the political parties, you get to the National Assembly, the next thing Akpabio is reading defection letters. What a shame. So that's why I say we don't have true opposition.
All right, let's go to INEC. Is INEC as an institution fixable? Because with the election set for January, February 2027, is there any coordinated plan to prevent the expected election rigging? If INEC sabotages the process again, like we saw in 2023, how should Nigerians respond?
Well, I'm sure 2027 will be different. It will be different because Nigerians are now quite conscientized. Nigerians now know that part of the problem they have, apart from the apart from the layers of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, that INEC itself, that institution is very pivotal, it's very critical to the survival of democracy, it's very important to the safeguard of democratic choices and preferences. So, Nigerians are going to focus heavily on INEC, and that is why you are seeing the current pressure, the protest in INEC offices by the different political parties and all of that. Now, I need to warn ahead that it's not likely going to be business as usual for INEC or the different resident electoral commissioners in the states to think and believe that they can compromise the elections next year, between January and February, very crucial elections, that on their own will determine the very existence of Nigeria. Do not forget, there are also arguments that Nigeria expired about 4 years ago, that the document of amalgamation, that brought the southern Nigeria, southern protectorate and northern region together, expired in 2024, because that document has a lifespan, allegedly have a lifespan of 100 years. I have not seen that document, but I want to believe, because when the British came in and persuaded southern Nigeria and northern Nigeria to come together to become one country, and then they gave the name Nigeria, there must be some form of agreement and discussion. What were those discussions? What were those agreements? Nobody has seen the document. So there are people who have assessed it, and they are saying that, indeed, Nigeria as a country has expired. Now, with regards to INEC, INEC cannot be insulated. The behavior of INEC cannot be insulated from even the Constitution itself, that many of us in the civil society movement describe as a very fraudulent document. Because the opening paragraph of the Constitution says that we, the people of Nigeria, make unto ourselves this Constitution. I cannot remember any time, anywhere, whether my own forefathers, my fathers, and even me now, or anybody at any point in Nigeria, sitting down with anybody to decide that we want to make a Constitution for ourselves. So the current feeble attempt to rework some of the vexatious aspects of the Constitution, I don't think it is acceptable to Nigerians. And INEC derives its powers from that fraudulent document called the Constitution. Because to the extent of a document lying against a people and itself, it simply shows to a very large extent that the country itself was built on a very fractured, fraudulent foundation. And that's why we're having all these problems. There are people who believe that their religion is supreme, and that their religion, if you don't accept it, they will use force to get you to accept it. Now, no nation can grow when you have people who think that they are superior to other people. So this contest of superiority, this mindset of that power belongs to us, while others are supposed to be subservient, they are slaves, they are supposed to be scapegoated. It cannot work, and that's why we're having the problem. So, with regards to INEC, the reason I said that next year is going to be a defining moment is because people are already very fed up with even living together as one. Because the fact that we do not share the same culture and tradition, and INEC as an institution has a responsibility to reinvent, that support base, to say that, look, whatever you people want, we will do it for you. So if the ballots that will be cast by Nigerians is in preference of an individual to be president, to be governor, to be anything, I beg INEC, I plead with INEC to please respect the wish of Nigerians. Because if INEC fails to do that, fails to respect the desire, the wish of Nigerians, then INEC itself would have become a precursor to national crisis. They would have prepared the ground for those who want to throw Nigeria into crisis. There's a proverb in my place. He says a child who wants to cry, wants to push the head of that child, the child will fall down and start crying. Nigeria already have a lot of people who are waiting to see, waiting for opportunity to exert what they have in their mind. War is not good for any nation. Look at what's happening in Sudan today. Look at what happened to Somalia. Look at what is happening to the Palestinians. And look at what is happening between the Americans and between Israel, Syria, Lebanon, and even Iran. War comes with a lot of pains and evils. If you ask the average Igbo man who witnessed the civil war, the 3-year civil war between 1967 and 1970, they will tell you that the last wish is war. And that is why you see the average Igbo man goes into every nook and corner of Nigeria to establish his business, to reassure those communities that we want to be fully reintegrated back to Nigeria. It's only the Igbo that you find in every community in Nigeria. Maybe the Hausas, they also go around, but other tribes are so conservative. So the point to be made here is that INEC must know that they have an historic responsibility, very crucial responsibility, to guarantee the survival of this country called the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If Professor Amukbito thinks that he has been a lecturer ahead, if he thinks that INEC is a place to play video games, it's a place to joke, then history will record him possibly as the last INEC chairman. And even Mr. President himself should know that he has to respect the wishes of Nigerians. They are right in the government. They live amongst us.